Hello, my name is James Spiro, and this is the Roadshow Plus event brought to you by Calcalist and Poalim Tech. I'm joined now with Hadar Sitman Norris, partner at TPY Capital, Guy Yamen, founder and managing partner at TPY Capital, and Yatsiv, general partner at PICO Venture Partners. Folks, thank you so much for taking the time. I'd like to start, please, by addressing the elephant in the room, which is that 2023 has been a very challenging year for Israel, for the country, for Startup Nation. How have you folks found it, and what are some of the insights that you can share as the year is coming to an end? So I'm going to start with you, I'm afraid, because you're the one holding the mic. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not sure. So please share with me some of the things that you found this year.
Well, I would say I'll probably state the obvious by saying that 2023, which we're not even done yet, we still have a week to go, is a year we're going to be very glad to be departing from. And in fact, it seems like it's been a few years rolled into one, because since October 7th, we're in yet a whole new different ballgame. And the audience doesn't know, but literally 5 minutes ago, there was a siren that went off here. So I think, for me, I would just try and summarize it with one word and say it's the year of chaos, but also the year of resilience. And I think this is a word that you'd hear from many people here in this event, investors and definitely entrepreneurs. This is a year that had challenged and stretched our entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in this ecosystem in general more than anything that they had experienced, especially the last couple of months. But what we're seeing at the same time is just a sheer sense of we're going to go at it despite all challenges. And there are various actions that startups are taking that we can speak about, not to monopolize the time. And they're at it even with the sirens going off.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. That's a wonderful introduction. Thank you. Do either of you have anything to add about that? If not, we can dive straight in. Yeah, sorry, you're wrestling over the microphone. So
No problem. I completely agree with what Guy said, but I'll add something in addition. 2023 was a direct continuation of a very tough 2022. And a lot of us in Israel have been focusing all of our efforts in preparing the companies for the worst. And the worst has come in the form of this war. So in essence, we are prepared. And exactly as Guy said, I think it's a form of resilience, of focusing and continuing forward no matter what. I think it's been our slogan. And I think that's a big part of the continuation as we head into 2024.
Yeah, definitely. 2023 has definitely been the longest decade ever. As they like to say. Hadar, I'd like to come to you, please. I'd like to get your opinion on specifically how this crazy year has affected the early stage companies and startups. So if there's anything, maybe some insights you've gleaned from what it's looked like on that end.
Sure, yeah. So we work with early stages. We lead investments in seed companies and A companies. And so the companies that we're meeting in our deal flow, as well as companies that are in our portfolio, are fitting within the category of early stage. Early stage companies face generally challenges around go-to-market, around product market fit, around access point to customers, raising their next funding, working with VCs. But I think on top of it, what we're seeing now is challenges around prioritization. The current situation that founders are faced with, pushing them into making decisions of where they're putting their efforts and focus, simply because in many cases they don't have their full team. Some of the founders themselves are in reserve service. In other cases, it's part of the team. And so I think in this context, founders and investors are focusing the conversation around how to navigate and where to put their focus on. And specifically, what we're seeing is that we're able to help them navigate that because we're all operators and we come from the background of having to navigate it ourselves, and we've been through a few cycles in the past. As mentioned before, it's not the first challenge in the last few years, and so that's really where the focus is.
I'd like to ask a bit about how things in December, I saw a funny meme, it was like starting the year, ending the year, and how things have all changed and how sentiments have been different. How have you changed your contact with LPs or portfolio companies. Has anything changed since October 7? Now that we're in this war era, is anything different? Are you finding any sensitivities, any hostilities? What's it looking like on your side?
Well, you mentioned two stakeholders on the investor side and the portfolio company side. I'll start with the portfolio companies. I think the kind of engagement that we have as a fund with portfolio companies had never been that idiosyncratic since the war began, because you find yourself in situations that no one had ever experienced. Having 40% of a workforce of one startup in reserve duty, having members of startups that have an immediate family or friends being affected, means that we're transitioning to an ongoing, call it even moral support that goes all the way to the startups and back to us. I can say, as far as LPs goes, we've got LPs that are foreign LPs. What we've seen across the board is a resounding support in Israel and in the ecosystem. And I think the proof is going to be in the pudding in 2024, whether those statements, and as the war prolongs, translate into actual direct and indirect investments in funds in the Israeli ecosystem. My hope is that the kind of resilience that I had alluded to earlier is something that is being observed by investors worldwide, institutional and retail investors alike. And they know that Israeli entrepreneurs are here to deliver in spite of, and maybe even because of, everything that's happening.
Okay, amazing. I actually want to touch on that point. So Tal, I don't know if you want to you mentioned about investors kind of seeing those opportunities. Is there a trust issue now in Israel? I mean, investors don't like shaky times. They don't like investing in things they're not unsure about. Israel's at war. Is that affecting anything?
I'll answer from the top. The answer for us is no, we're not feeling it right now. Are we concerned about it? Of course. Investors don't like additional risk and ambiguity, and war presents additional risk and ambiguity. I can say that we have not felt it. Our investors specifically at PICO have been massively supportive. It's been a pleasure in that respect, both emotionally as well as from a business standpoint. Investors abroad, our teams, our companies have not faced any difficulties to date. I do anticipate that there will be some challenges with some investors, but we've not felt it. We felt that the key investors that are very active in Israel have done it over time, have earned that trust in a mutual way, and are continuing to invest in Israel right now.
Okay, that's amazing. I often hear that it's the investors that have continued to invest in the past are still doing so, but it's the new ones or the ones that were thinking about it that have maybe been a bit scared off. I'd like to ask about 2024. I hate asking for predictions because things always go wrong. I'd like to do as much as I can, ask you what you're expecting. How can we best prepare for the year ahead? What can we see going forward? And Guy, since you're holding the mic, I'm going to start with you. And then we'll go back to Hadar.
Okay, sure. So I'll make this brief. I think we're in this. I'm not going to make geopolitical predictions on top of the ecosystem ones, but I don't think we're going to see complete and utter peace in our time anytime soon. And I think it's a kind of a new normal that we're all adjusting to. And I think ultimately, you're seeing startups taking what it takes to extend their runway and to build even more agile organizations. One of the things that we've been doing when speaking with our LPs and potential LPs is actually show them some of the org charts of our portfolio companies and what they're showing to us. And what you see are the different shades of those in reserve duty, where the spouse is in reserve duty, and all the different changes that they're making to the org structure. And when people are going to come back from combat, they're going to come back to organizations that are just more agile, that are more flexible, and hopefully more competitive on a global landscape. So I don't think we're drinking our own juice as an ecosystem saying this. I think coming out of this, if you look at the entrepreneur in Tel Aviv versus the one in London, in the Valley, in Singapore, I think we've got a lot to be proud about.
Amazing. Hadar, I'd like to...
Sure. So when I think about 2024, I think about it in two ways. One, the Israeli ecosystem is unique in that the companies that are being built here are not catering to the Israeli market. So they're actually looking outside of Israel. And so they're dependent on how the markets are doing outside of Israel more than how they're doing in Israel. And we are seeing in the world a beginning of a positive shift from a macro perspective. And we're seeing it also among our portfolio companies from a customer perspective, from a revenue perspective. So that's one. We're seeing a positive trend there that should cater positively to the Israeli ecosystem, and which would also indicate, in my view, a good environment to build companies in. Right? There are still problems to be solved. There is a positive macro trend, and so for Israeli founders, that should be a good sign. On the Israeli front, I think what we're seeing once again is the resilience and the nimbleness of the Israeli companies, of the Israeli culture, of the Israeli founders, and we will continue to see it. So the companies have changed in the last 2 months. Everyone had to assess again what their needs are, where their priorities should be, as they've done in the past, by the way, through COVID, through different cycles. So it's not the first time that they have to do it, and it does make them more resilient, and they're in a way used to it. So they're built upon it. So I think that 2024 should be a good year as far as new early stage companies emerging. It should be a fairly positive year also for growth companies as the macroeconomics improve.
Okay, amazing. Thank you. We are coming to the end of our very precious time. I wish we could keep going. So I do want to ask one more question, and we're going to come down this way. So if we could pass the microphone back to Tal, and then we'll pass it down. I want to know the role of the government in, if any, in terms of this rehabilitation of Startup Nation. It's taking a huge blow. As you said, everyone's going to the army. It's costing the economy. What is the role of the government to help Startup Nation, if any? And yeah, please, ideas welcome, and criticisms also. Whatever you fancy.
It's a very good question. It's a tough question. I think, and it's leading off the prior question. I think we're leading into 2024 after 2 tough years, and I'm talking about macro globally for the high tech scene. We're seeing a resurgence in the U.S., which is a great sign, and the U.S. usually leads 6-9 months ahead of us. So we were all very optimistic before this war started. So the war sets us back a little bit. And for us to get this engine going and in full momentum, we need all the support that we can get. I think that's the bottom line. I think for us VCs, and I'd love to hear what Guy and Hadar have to say, but what we've been doing in our portfolio and with our companies, just pushing them forward to continue this momentum, to create positive energy. Us doing it is critical. We are the ones funding them. But for us to continue doing it, for VCs in general to continue doing it, we need additional support. So it goes to the institutionals supporting some of these funds, and it goes to the government supporting all the way down the chain. So I think the government's role here is critical. And I think that if we all work together to create this positive energy, we'll come out on top. And very much like Hadar's prediction, I think 2024 can have a positive year for all of us.
Amazing. I hope so. Guy.
Well, I'm hearing Tal talk about the role of government. I don't know if to cry or to laugh. Because the role should be outstanding. It's not. Frankly, there's nothing really strategic in how the government is looking at the impact of everything that's happening here on the ecosystem. And therefore, you're seeing, like in almost every other aspect of our life, just huge amount of grassroots initiatives that are taking place, including funds that are trying to support companies. We're involved with one called Iron Nation, and there's other activities as well. We have to understand, to Tal's earlier point, we're off 2 years of a cycle, a downturn cycle, and then what is called judicial overhaul, and then the war. And like one of the folks that I spoke to here, whose kid just graduated from computer science and can't find a job, the potential ripple effect, negative ripple effect, what's happening here are huge. So even who is actually thinking about how you bring into the workforce a generation of people that have found it very difficult even before the war to get into technical positions. And if I had to guess, it's going to be the people in this room rather than the government, unfortunately, like we've done in the last few months and in the last year.
Okay, amazing. Hadar, final words.
Sure. So I think two areas of focus that I would expect from the government. One is to strive for stability and growth. Stability is necessary for the growth to happen, both on the political side, on the security side, on the economic side. We need to provide the ground floor for everything to be built on. And then second, I think that we also need to start addressing the economic impact of the war. And by that, I mean, just from our perspective in the ecosystem, it's to start prioritizing. So in the first phase, all hands were on deck. And the second phase is to, again, prioritization is a key word here, to understand how to support the different aspects of the economy. If it's through the reserve service that needs to start, look at who needs to stay in reserve and is critical for that, and who's critical on other fronts to enable and support the high-tech sector and other sectors as well. I think that's where we expect to see much more thoughtful moves from the government and from everyone else involved.
All right, amazing. Guys, I'm sorry, we've run out of time. I wish we could talk all day. There's certainly plenty to discuss. Hadar, Guy, Tal, I'd like to thank you for your time and your insights. I hope we come back in Roadshow Plus 2024 with a bit more calmer waters and we can assess the year and hopefully it's a bit more relaxed. Folks, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.